Hello, everybody. I'm going to let this video play in the background, and it's probably going to last most of the presentation. But this is some of the things that I've worked on in the past, and some of the things that inspired me to do what I do. So when I was in high school, I really didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with my career. I thought it might be cool to be an astronaut. So I went to college to study aerospace engineering, and I also signed up for the Air Force at that time, and I had a pilot slot, and I felt, aerospace engineering pilot slot, that's probably a good progression point to get into the astronaut program. But in my first couple of semesters in college, I had to get glasses, and that ruined my chances for being in the Air Force and pursuing my dreams to be an astronaut. However, I stuck with the engineering program, and through that I started learning computer graphics. And this was in the mid-'80s, and computer graphics was a pretty new thing at that time, at least in the commercial space. The only time you see computer graphics back then were in flight simulators. And in the engineering program that I was in, one of the professors had a lot of experience and knowledge with flight simulators and was looking for some volunteers to help out on a flight simulator, but this was a special flight simulator. It was a flight simulator of a spacecraft going to Mars, and I signed up for it. And they took me into this closet and said, okay, here's the computers, go and start making some computer graphics for us. And they didn't tell us how to do it. They just said, here you go. So sitting in this little closet was about $1 million worth of computing hardware. And these were original silicon graphics computers that were considered supercomputers at the time, but they were just sitting there collecting dust. Nobody knew how to use them. And me and one other guy that volunteered, we decided to learn how to use the software. We wrote our own software and started programming these silicon graphics machines to do pretty high-end computer graphics for the time. And because we had these machines, we got a subscription to a magazine called Iris Universe. And it was published by the Silicon Graphics Computing Company. And on the cover of that magazine was a picture of the movie The Abyss. And it was actually this picture right here that was on the cover of the magazine. And when I started reading the article, I learned that the computer that I was using was used to make this movie. And from that moment, from that second, I knew exactly what I wanted to do in my career. It was no longer did I want to work for NASA, even though I did that for a little while. I didn't want to work for Boeing, even though I did that for a while. I wanted to make Hollywood special effects and do computer graphics and animation for movies. So after seeing this, there's a few other movies that came out about this time, like Jurassic Park, and they were all using the same hardware that I was using. And I did all I could on my spare time in between studying and working to get to the quality level that I'd be attractive to Hollywood to work in visual effects. And I did work for NASA for a little while. I worked at Boeing for a little while. And I worked doing other types of technical animation for a while. But I started doing television commercials and anything that I could to get into the visual effects area. And if you guys know a little bit about special effects, one of the biggest companies in the world that does special effects is Industrial Light and Magic. And back in the early 90s, I applied to ILM, as it's known, 4 different times. I got 4 rejection letters from them. They were pretty nice rejection letters, but I didn't get to work at ILM. However, I kept perfecting my skills, and I finally got my first job offer from a company called Centropolis that made this movie, Godzilla. I was one of the first hires on the show, and worked throughout the entire show on the Godzilla character and the baby Godzillas, or baby-zillas as we call them. So this scene right here I worked on, some of the shot where the little statue's falling down. I got to go on set a few times, which was neat. Another really cool thing that they did when the movie wrapped. I'm just going to let it play. After the movie was all done, there was a huge marketing campaign that was launched for this movie. It was one of the largest marketing campaigns in history. And they had the premiere of the movie in Madison Square Garden in New York. But I was working in Hollywood. I was working in LA. They took the entire cast of the movie crew and all the stars and everybody else. They flew us all to New York with a date, put us up in a hotel for a couple of days, and we got to go to Madison Square Garden for the premiere. We rented a limo, we got the red carpet, all the paparazzi. Generally, after you get out of the limo, you get out of the limo, you're supposed to go down the red carpet and then you get into your seat. But me and my friends, we just hung out on the side of the red carpet and we got to watch all the stars come through. It was really a nice experience, really fun. It was a very challenging job. There was about 20 full-time employees that worked during the day and another 20 full-time employees that worked at night. And as soon as you got off your seat or off your desk, somebody else sat down and kept working. So it was a 24-hour shift. I had one of the fastest computers, so mine was one of the most desirable, so everybody was waiting for me to get up. But I was also like a real senior lead type guy on the show, so they wanted me to work really long. So I put in 12 to 14-hour days, 7 days a week for a whole year. And I was really burned out by the end of this project, even though I just loved the work. It was a lot of fun. I would never do it any differently than I did it, than I had that experience. So after working on the show for a crazy number of hours, like double the number of hours a normal person would work at a day job, I wanted to relax a little bit, take it down a notch, and I was looking for other employment opportunities when Godzilla was over. And the company, Centropolis, they made me an offer to work on the next movie, which was, what was it? It was an American Revolution movie. I can't remember. Anyways, and then I also got a job offer from DreamWorks to work on Inspector Gadget and Armageddon. And then I got a third offer from a company in Hawaii to work on the movie Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within. And they all made very generous offers, but eventually I just decided to take the job in Hawaii. Our whole crew from Godzilla basically all moved together to go to Hawaii. We like had roommates together, that people that we knew from LA, and we rented mansions. And one of the things that I talked to my boss about before going to Hawaii was I don't want to work 80 hours a week anymore. So he said, no problem, it'll be a 40-hour work week, and we'll have a good time. So he convinced me. We went over there, and we worked on the movie Final Fantasy. Anybody know that movie? Yeah? Good. I'm going to show some clips from it and some of the making of stuff. See if I can fast forward to it.
Still looks good.
I know.
So this movie was made in, here it is. This is about 1998 time frame. This guy was the best man at my wedding. He ran the motion capture facility in Hawaii, and this is one of the first movies that really showed photorealistic humans. If you haven't seen it yet, I'd recommend you doing it. So, especially a lot of you video game fans out there that play the Final Fantasy series, has almost no tie into it at all. But it's a good movie anyway. So everything here was done in Hawaii. This was done in the Hawaii Film Studio, which is a big warehouse near Diamond Head Crater, or Diamond Head Volcano. And they had all the actors fly in. They did all the motion capture in that studio. And if you see some of these scenes of the live action shooting in the motion capture studio, you'll see that they created all these physical props, like the things that they're lifting up on, everything that they could do to make it as realistic as possible, and to make the job of the animators, which is what I did, as easy as possible. So I often get a question, so as an animator, which is what I did on this show in Godzilla, what do you do with a motion capture show? Well, the motion capture data that's captured from the cameras is only the first step. And generally you get it, and the characters aren't stepping on the floor correctly, they're not holding on to something correctly. And part of the animator's job is to fix that, to fix the motion of the actors and the limitations that they had when they were shooting. One of the reasons for using motion capture is you don't want to put real actors in harm's way. So if there was a, say, a 1,000-ton spaceship flying at you like this, that was a shot I worked on. That's one of the mansions I lived in Hawaii, and it's kind of a deceiving picture here, but this is a $1 million house. I had 2 roommates. Let's back up just a second. No, I went too far. Anyways, it was a 3-story house with a guest house, and it overlooked the whole of Manoa Valley, which is this gorgeous valley overlooking downtown Honolulu and Waikiki Beach. And when I woke up in the morning, literally every day there was at least one rainbow in the valley. And I'm not lying, it's like, I'd say 80% of the days I'd wake up, I didn't even have any curtains, just wake up, rainbow in front of your window. Pretty cool. So this show, I actually was able to work 40-hour work weeks, normal work weeks. And this is a typical day on the set in the movie studio. So get up about 5 in the morning on purpose. I get my binoculars out and I look at the South Shore of Oahu and look to see where the best surf breaks are that day. And then if there was a good surf break, I'd go surfing in the morning before work. And if not, I'd just drive into work. And then at lunchtime, get my surfboard out and take it to the beach and see if there's any surf up at that point. A lot of times there was. A lot of times it was just a beautiful day at the beach. And then you come back to work for another 6 hours or so, and as long as you want. And that was a typical work day. Then on the weekdays, weekends, there's the house. So this 3 stories going down from this point, and it overlooks the valley. So I learned how to surf in Hawaii. This is Haleiwa surf break. Never surfed in my life, but knew it's something I wanted to do. So me and my roommate, we went up to the North Shore, and we got an instructor, and we started surfing out there. I also am a private pilot. I would fly out of this airport. It's called Dillingham. It's on the North Shore of Hawaii too. So typical Saturday day, get in my 2-seat sports car, drive up to the North Shore, have the surfboard in my car on the right side, and I'd go flying, look for the surf breaks on the North Shore, and then go surfing. So I also met my wife in Hawaii. She was an Army helicopter pilot, and she got transferred from Hawaii to Germany. So she was stationed in Hawaii, I was living there. She got transferred to Germany, and I decided to leave this job at Square USA, and we moved to Germany together. We spent 3 years in Germany, and I worked in the industry there as well. Worked on some feature films and TV shows. Did lots of sightseeing. This is one of the films that I worked on there. I was a VFX supervisor, or co-supervisor. It was a sci-fi movie. It was a pretty low resolution video that I captured, but there was about 500 visual effects shots. Fairly high quality for the time. This is about the year 2000. We wanted to have a feature film and then spin it off into a TV series, but right at this time in the year 2000, the market was very saturated with sci-fi TV shows, and we couldn't sell it to the market. So that show went away. I'm going to fast forward a little bit. This was called Ice Planet. You can still get it on DVD, but you have to have a PAL player to see it. One more thing about this show. So we did it in Germany, and half the crew I hired were what I would consider like North American Westerners, and the other half were from Europe. And there were a lot of junior guys coming up to join our project in Europe. Almost all of the guys that I hired on the show went on to work in Los Angeles or on other visual effects projects. A good number of them are still working at Weta in New Zealand. There's about 10 of them that started on this show. This was their first show, and now they're all at Weta. All right, I'm going to skip forward a little bit. All right, this is another show that we worked on in Europe. This one was called The Biggest Step, and it's about the history of man. And this was a 5-part miniseries. It was supposed to be for Fox Television Studios. Unfortunately, it got canceled before we finished it, but the visuals were pretty high quality. It's getting stretched up there for some reason. It's not stretched on my monitor. Anyways, let's keep going. All right, these are just some background shots of living in Europe and traveling around Europe. We lived in a medieval city that was built in the year 1400. This is my office in Germany. So the Germans like to party, if you haven't guessed. It wasn't every night that we'd have a party in the office like this, but just to give you an idea of how much that culture likes to have fun, there's a beer vending machine in our office break room, and at the time it was, I think it was 1 Deutschmark, which is like 50 cents, you get a liter of beer. And people would just get a liter of beer, bring it to their desk, and keep working. It was fun. So did some traveling in Italy. This is a villa we stayed at in the Tuscany. It was an active vineyard. We went to lots of places in Italy. This is London. So one thing I didn't tell you about my wife, who's a helicopter, her twin was an Air Force pilot as well. She flew C-130s and something that looked like a Learjet. So my wife Marcy is in the Air Guard here, and she's flying Blackhawks here in Milwaukee. That was the airport in Dillingham, Hawaii. This is a trip to Turkey that we went to. This is a museum in, I think in Omaha Beach. This is Pompeii. So if you guys don't know the story about Pompeii, there's a big volcano there, buried the whole town in ash. And people were buried alive there. And when they dug it all out, they found these cavities inside the ash. They filled up the cavities with plaster, and they turned it into people. So there's pretty gross. There's a whole bunch of these. All right, more ruins. 10 years ago. We got to play golf at a castle. Right near our house, there's a castle. They had like a 9-hole golf course around it. This is the Amalfi Coast, one of my favorite places to visit in Italy. And one of the reasons I bring this picture up, so this is the view out of our hotel room, but this next view will show you what happened to me on that trip, if it's in order. Come on. Let's go. There it goes. So we drove down there and ate our first meal there, and I got horribly sick, and some food poisoning type stuff. And my wife went to the apothecary, like the pharmacy, and they gave her this packet of these vials here, and the vials were vile. They were horrible, and I had to take like one every hour or something, and it was worse than the sickness itself. And I basically sat in the hotel room for 3 days drinking this stuff. It was pretty bad. All right, spent some time skiing in the Alps. Driving on the Autobahn in the Alps like James Bond, that was fun. Speaking about James Bond, so after leaving Europe, I went back to California, worked on a couple of projects there. One of them was for electronic arts. I worked on the James Bond from Russia with Love game. These are some scenes from that. Actually helped out with the jetpack quite a bit. That was fun. After I worked on this, I worked on another game called Lord of the Rings: The Third Age. And I also worked at Sony ImageWorks on the movie Polar Express. And I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. I think I skipped too far. Maybe it's catching up. Oops, still going. All right, I'll let it play. So while it's catching up, I'm going to kind of take a few steps back. So why am I showing you all this stuff? One of the reasons is I want everybody to realize that if you have a dream of something that you want to do, go and pursue that dream. No matter how far out it could be, like being an astronaut, working on a video game, working in the movies, climbing a mountain like Mount Everest or something like that. You have to start somewhere and just keep working at it to pursue your dream. All right, so this Polar Express, go back a little bit. Right. Can you turn that up a little bit? Yeah. So in Polar Express, we had Tom Hanks play the part of about 8 of the different roles in the show.
Thank you.
And I was lucky enough to be the first animator to get a shot vinyl in the movie. And the director of this movie is Zemeckis. He's known for like Back to the Future and a lot of other feature films, but now he's on this kick for doing these motion capture shows, and Polar Express was the first one. So I submitted my first shot of this little boy to Zemeckis, and it was a really simple shot. He's just laying in his bed, and he looks over at his clock. That's all it was. It was about, I don't know, 5 seconds long, something like that. It's a typical shot, but it got approved all through our Sony pipeline, which is the animation supervisor, the visual effects supervisor, and then it goes to the director, Zemeckis. So when I got notes back from the shot, he critiqued every single frame of film. So if you guys know, there's 24 frames in a second in feature films, 30 frames a second in video games or in TV shows. But every single frame of film, he gave me a note on saying eyelid wasn't right, or the lip was too low, the corner of the mouth wasn't right. And then he said, from now on, every time you submit a shot, and that includes the whole crew, and we had like 30 animators working on this, we had to superimpose Tom Hanks' performance into the shot. Right. So these are different pictures of Tom and his CG doubles. But basically, we would send the video of Tom Hanks superimposed into the computer graphics. And again, he would critique every single frame of film. And there's 2 quotes from Zemeckis that I remember from this project. The one was, "I'm paying for Tom Hanks' performance. I want to see Tom Hanks on the screen." But as animators, we felt that Tom did a fine job playing the conductor and playing the hobo. Those were really, really good characters. But playing this little boy was completely wrong for him, in my opinion. He's this 45, 50-year-old man playing the part of a 9, 10-year-old boy. And it's just the weight is different, his facial expressions are completely different. And for about 8 months, we were arguing with Zemeckis, saying, let the animators do our job. Let us show you what that boy could look like. And we kept getting pushback, and no, I want to see Tom Hanks. And eventually, after about 9 months of work, he said, okay, go ahead. And some of the show, you'll see, the characters look a lot better, and those are the shots that Zemeckis allowed us to have a little bit more freehand animating. The other quote that I remember from that project was, in filmmaking, when you have 2 shots next to each other, and let's say a guy's wearing a wristwatch in one shot, and he's not wearing the wristwatch in the second shot, that's called discontinuity. There's a jump there. Sometimes it's a jump cut. Sometimes you film something on different days and that happens, or the actor just forgot to put the watch back on. But Zemeckis said continuity is for wussies. He didn't care about it. He said he just cared about the overall story, and little lapses like that didn't matter. That's his quote. Right. So.
But you worried about the way the eyelids look?
Yeah. Exactly.
And Back to the Future, that's total continuity.
It's a very, very strange quote from him. That's right. It was a really, really fun project. Actually, I worked on this before I worked on the James Bond stuff. after working on the James Bond stuff in electronic arts, my wife and I decided to move back here to Wisconsin. We've been in and out of Wisconsin for a while. My wife was born and raised here, and I have a lot of long-time connections to Wisconsin. This was around 2003 or so. We live in Oconomowoc, but I still wanted to keep working in the industry, and I got a job offer to work on the movie Superman Returns in Sydney. But I got to work it out such that I could do most of my job in Wisconsin. So I worked in my basement in Oconomowoc on my computer, and we'd have guests over, and they'd come down to my office and say, look, this has been shot, in Superman Returns, it's going to come out in a year. And then I spent half the time in Sydney, and we had teleconferences between Oconomowoc, Sydney, and Los Angeles every day. And then I spent about 3 months living in Sydney. It's really a fun time. Let's see if I've got... Right, so this is the sequence that I was responsible for. It was, I called it the young Clark Kent sequence. My job was animation supervisor on this show, so I didn't do like the cornfields and stuff. But coming from Wisconsin, I'd look out the window and I'd see cornfields, so this was kind of second nature to me. This gives you an idea of what goes into making special effects as feature film quality. All the corn that you see there is all digital. Nothing is real. The sprinklers are filmed from another shoot and superimposed in there. All the haze is done in special effects. Even the sky is done in special effects. Lens flares, special effects. To make just this one character is 6 passes, generally speaking. And then you get the final look to it. Now in this particular scene, we actually took the head of the actor and pasted it on our computer graphics body. This is the real actor, and then he transitions into the computer graphics stunt double right here. Right now it's all stunt double. Now we'll see the recreation of that. This kid who did these stunts, he was flying hundreds and hundreds of feet in the air. And we wound up cutting almost all of it from the show. So we did all these super dangerous things, and just to be replaced by our CG double. Digital corn, digital sprinklers, recreated the silo water tower. In this case, it's all computer graphics, so no head replacements. That's what he did on the left there, so he's just flying wildly. That's pretty much the end of that sequence. This project lasted about 9 months or so, and I was hoping to get some surfing in California, Sydney, and Australia, and I did a little bit, but unfortunately I went during their winter time. So I left from our summer and went to their winter time, which wasn't too cold. It was like in the 50s there, but pretty cold for surfing.
He's just an amazing...
All right. After this, went back to California for a little while. I got to work on the TV show called Back at the Barnyard. I was a digital supervisor. I was in charge of all the computer graphics and animation for the entire show. It was produced at 5 different studios around the world. One of them was in LA, and this is a shot from the film, but not the TV show, but it's kind of nice to see the way that it was done. So we had one studio in California and 4 studios in India. And I wound up spending a lot of time going back and forth to India to help them set up their studios and get their animation pipeline working correctly. Anybody remember the show?
I got some sweet legs! Give me some sweet legs!
What I love about Kevin is he has this Jackie.
This is the director and creator, Steve Oedeker.
For me.
I thought, this is something I can do. It's not going to be that much of a stretch. I can play
Here,
a
you
cat.
just skip.
And he makes a great cat.
I would live.
All right, so when this show was over, I had to leave California again, and we moved back here to Wisconsin. And that's the way it is in the film business, in the TV show business, and in video games as well. It's very often that you'll work on a production for 9 months or a year.
Something I can do.
The job will go away, the production's done, and you got to go find other work somewhere.
He makes a great cat.
In this case, we decided to move back to Wisconsin,
You know, I would graze.
and I set up my own animation studio here. And during this time, I got some jobs working in a local game studio called Human Head, and they worked on the game called Prey, and they're still working on it, kind of. But one of the sequences I spent the most time with is kind of towards the end of the game, right here. Anybody play Prey? Maybe you'll remember this scene. So at the beginning of the game, there's a female character that's the love interest of your character. And later in the game, she turns into this monster, and you got to kill her. It takes a while to finally defeat her. Let's see if I can skip ahead. All right, I think it's coming up now. It's almost done. You got to kill these little gun pods on the side of her. Energy pods. She's not feeling too good.
Equa, Tommy. I'm ready.
Ken, I've got to save you.
You can't save me, Tommy. You can only let me go. Please, Tommy. Let me go.
All right, that's good. I'll turn it down again. Yeah, so that's the end of her girlfriend. She was affectionately called Girlfriend X in the development community.
I love you.
Well, not anymore. All right. So about this time, I got another job offer to work at the Madison Media Institute and to develop a game art and animation program for other aspiring artists. And this was about 4 years ago. And since then, we've had a few graduating classes. It's a 2-year associate's degree. If anybody's interested in learning how to do special effects, video game development, anything like that, please feel free to come and talk to me about it. We also have a booth somewhere here, and Jonathan, and if you see anybody in these yellow-green shirts, you can ask them about it as well. Let's see, I don't know if there's anything else. Oh, this is one of the more recent projects I'm working on. It's a game called Rising Storm. It's a expansion module for Red Orchestra, first-person shooter game. And that's about it. Anybody have any questions? Yep.
Can you give me like a quick technical rundown of how you go from like motion capture data into software and
Sure.
like what software you use and how you hook things up?
Sure. So the question was, how do you go from motion capture, capturing data, to putting it into a video game or to seeing the animation work in your product, whatever it is, right? And what are the steps involved? Well, the first and most important step is getting a really good performer. And this is one of the most common mistakes people make in the business, especially game companies. Like, they'll just say, hey, let's get the animator down there, he knows how to jump. But it's really, really important to get the best performer you can. It's like hiring Tom Hanks. He's a great performer for the conductor, for Santa, and for the hobo, but not a great performer for the kid. And basically, when you do the motion capture, what comes out of there is it's the motion of the actor that you hire. And it's recorded onto dots. You've probably seen the guys wearing these dots in the videos. Those dots are turned into 3D coordinates, basically. And then you take a literal skeleton of your computer graphics character and you attach the skeleton to those points. So like if you had a point for the elbow, you can just constrain it to that point. And you do it throughout the whole recorded take. And the way you shoot motion captures is exactly the way you would shoot a live action set. So, you know, you have a script and you have a bunch of actions that the actor has to perform. And you say, well, you just run it like a normal live action set. You get the data, and after you get the data, typically it comes in like as raw binary data. And you have to have a couple different programs usually to take that data and bring it into your animation software. In a lot of the films that we worked on, we use motion analysis hardware. That's what we have at our school as well. And that has its own proprietary data gathering and data cleanup software. It's called Cortex and Solver. But a lot of other motion capture equipment doesn't have this middle step. You could go right from the data to a program called Motion Builder that's made by Autodesk. And a lot of these programs are available for free for students and for a 30-day trial if you want to get a trial for them. But if you have a student ID, you can get them for free. When you get the data in Motion Builder, typically you'll have like one leg that's not touching the floor all the way. It's like floating a little bit. And Motion Builder will allow the animator to drag that foot into the floor or rotate the whole character so that they're in the right place. The other thing that Motion Builder will do is take two different takes. So let's say you have a take of a guy that's just walking and then he starts going upstairs. You can take Motion Builder and put those two takes together. After you're done with Motion Builder, then you usually export them to an animation package like Maya, which will allow you to render the character in high resolution.
Cool.
Kind of answer it?
Yeah.
Great. Did anybody have a question back there?
Got another one back here.
I know you said like video game development is mostly like on and off, like you leave one company and stuff.
Yes.
But I've heard like various stories about this, but like is the job security like kind of dependent on which company you work for? Because
Unfortunately not.
Because like I know like I've seen like Epic Games. I don't know if you've heard of them. But like their games, they have like I don't know if it's like a base group or what, but it's like some of the same guys will be like developing the games.
There are a few companies, very few companies out there that have a loyal workforce, and you know the company is loyal to the employees, and the employees are loyal to the company. Valve comes to mind. Epic, I think, is a good example too, where they don't expand very quickly ever, so they don't take on like 3 new projects, staff up 200 extra people, and then when those projects are done, lay everybody off. But in general, most companies will hire and fire based on how many projects are in-house. And it's not uncommon to have a hiatus between games where there's just not enough work for everybody, so people get laid off. Sometimes those same artists will get hired back onto that company, but very often the artists themselves plan for this long in advance, and then they already have jobs lined up for another company. Now, that's a very broad brush, you know, through the whole industry, and that goes for TV and film as well, but there are exceptions to it.
Oh, okay, I was just wondering about that.
Yep. That's one of the reasons I traveled around the world.
Other questions?
Anybody else?
If not, Eric Weiss, everyone.
Thank you, guys.